I know so many people know Sir Charles Carey as this peak performance strategist, and it may seem a bit confusing for those that wonder, why is he singing now? Why is he performing like a music artist? Well, regardless of the opinion, I can address the curiosity. And a lot of us don't realize that we have multiple gifts, multiple talents. But even beyond having the multiple gifts and talents, there's a reason for everything. My story as a musician, I know a lot of times, it's kind of complex. People know you for one thing, and if they see you doing something else, they may feel a certain way. And it's not that you need to be concerned about the opinions of other people, but the truth of the matter is, when you become a professional in one area, and then you switch industries, or you switch professions, or you seem to do more of one than the other, sometimes people don't necessarily know how to approach you, or they don't know if you're just jumping from thing to thing to thing, or if you are, a subject matter expert in that other area. And the reason is because, they see you in different lights, in different paths, in different arenas. And I guess for them, it may be confusing, but I'm surely a believer that God gives us multiple talents, multiple skills, and multiple abilities. And it's not just about, picking one over the other, unless it's the choice you've made. Why is it wrong, or why can't you do more than one thing in your lifetime? We've got one life. The world is open as it is. I mean, you go different places, you have different food choices, different amusement and entertainment opportunities. You have different life experiences. So why can't you explore different facets of what you do as a professional, or as maybe even just an ordinary everyday citizen? And I know there's levels, and has been levels to my life. I would like to say that I grew up on TV and radio. Whatever I heard on the radio was very exciting to me, because it stimulated my imagination. And not only did it stimulate my imagination, it made me just, wonder, what could I do, and how was this sound or that visual coming through the television. I remember once in particular, I was watching Diana Ross in Central Park when I was a kid, and this was a long time ago, before I forget what the what the situation was, but it was a long time before HBO and all these other internet cable stations were developed. And my pops couldn't explain to me how I could see her live, or see the entertainment live, but meanwhile it was like 8, 9 o'clock in the evening. So how am I able to see it live, and it's daylight in the television, but it's nighttime in our reality, and the program was shot in the same location we were in New York? And he couldn't explain it to me, so it further sparked curiosity about the creative aspects of life. And I went on to do all sorts of singing in choirs, and singing in churches, and different types of choirs. I remember I sang with a Mennonite choir for a while, and I was like, wow, this is fun. And because I was so young and so agile, I was able to sing the soprano, the alto, the tenor, and maybe even a little bit of the bass parts. And I was like, whoa, I didn't know I could do all these things with my voice. But I was a child. I was maybe 9, possibly 10 years old. And then, of course, you get older and you start to hear different things. And you start to really explore, and you learn, oh, wow, I can do that. So it's not just that I can hear it, but that I can actually do it. And for me, that was like, it really stimulated my interest and my curiosity even more. And eventually I started singing with a group called the Martin Luther King Fellowship Choir, following behind one of my friends who actually is a best friend. And in fact, we're so close that he no longer considers me a best friend. He considers me more of a brother because, we had so many things in common. We came from the same place. We were birthed in the same place, yet we met in another place. And he had a big family, has a big family. And all of his siblings played flute, sang, played drums. He played the bass at the time, and he sang. He also was a part of a group called the Liberators a long time ago. And I felt so close to him because it was something I longed for, to have that closeness, that family tie, that, equal desire to sing, to perform, to tap into the creative side of my life. And I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know where it was coming from. Yet he was singing in the glee club. He was singing in the choir. He was telling me about all of the exploits and adventures that he would go through. At the time, he was very close with a group called the Black Ivory. Many of you may know the Black Ivory. And he was good friends with Russell and Stewart and Leroy. And, he hung out with them from time to time, and as well as traveling with the choir in New York City. And I joined the choir because he was a part of the choir. And it's funny because soon after, he left. And I was like, where am I going to go if I leave? Why leave? So I felt sort of stuck and curious at the same time. If I left, what would I do? So I stayed and I learned, and I grew an appetite for wanting to know more. And the truth of the matter is, I got so hooked on it. I was like, I didn't want anything else but music. And we would travel and perform for, tourists from around the world that would come to the local churches in Harlem. And at that time, they had made a recording, an album called Soul Refreshment. I didn't record, but I was representing the songs from the album with select members. George Canton, he would pick different people to sing every week because the tourists were coming to Harlem. And we would get paid a few dollars per performance, and he would sell albums, and the tourists would buy the albums, and it was just a wonderful experience. And then I started seeing block parties and seeing live bands, and one of the guys in the group, his name was Paul Lawrence. And Paul, at the time, these are the 70s, we all had a very similar interest, a similar look, a similar style. Paul had the big afro, and he was the cool guy, and he was already writing songs, gospel songs, and, doing all the different things that musicians learn to do. And soon thereafter, he started doing showcases. He had a group in church, White Rock Baptist Church, where Reggie and Denise Rhodes and Freddie Jackson, they all came from that circle. I think Freddie was from a different church, but he was from that circle. A lot of churches in Harlem, just like all around the country. If you're in church, you know other churches, and you know other musicians and singers, and they started in church, and that spilled into them doing things outside. And eventually, things got big for him. But I would go around to the different places that they were doing showcases. I think it was this place off of Central Park West. There was just so many different places. And I was going into the studio. I was going because I was turned on. I was all live in it, and I just wanted to be so much a part of it. I just didn't know what to do with myself. So any opportunity, I was like a local roadie. I would help them take equipment in or maybe take stuff out, but I would stay to the very last moment, and then I would go home, and my head was just spinning. And, what all this has to do with why I'm doing what I'm doing now at this stage in my life is because I'm hooked. I've been hooked ever since I was a child. I didn't know that I was hooked, but I am. And I guess it doesn't help that I have one of those OCD type mentalities or mindsets, obsessive compulsive disorders, if you don't know what that means. And that's another story, because that OCD got me into a lot of trouble. But anyway, the point is, the reason I'm doing what I'm doing is because it was a long time for me being involved in music and, really not knowing how I fit in and where I fit in. But I continue to learn and I continue to grow, until I got to the opportunity where I was able to sink my feet in music in a big way and do some of the same things that Paul did and Freddie and many of the other artists that the world has come to know and come to love. But there's so much more. Like I said, there's levels to this. Yeah. I remember some of my first experiences were big. I got bold enough. In New York, we had a paper called, several, but The Village Voice, Showbiz, and Backstage. Eventually, I would start looking and buying Backstage and Showbiz as well as The Voice, and I would answer the classifieds. People would be looking for singers. There would be auditions for plays and movies, and I was very much a part of that culture. And I would answer a lot of the ads. I would go to the paper, I would make a call and follow up and go to the audition and see if they wanted me, if they could use me, see if I could get hired for a day or two. And I got hired several times. And honestly, I think I missed my calling because I got off track. Let's put it like that. I got off track. I got caught up in drugs and stuff, and I think that slowed down my momentum, and I think that also prevented me from going hard and as far as I possibly could have gone. Sometimes you just don't know what you don't know. No matter how good you want to be or how good you are and how much you're developing, when you have the wrong elements or the wrong people around you, it sidetracks and messes up the entire thing. And I'm no different. That's exactly what happened to me. I got sidetracked because of my own misdeeds. And, I won't say I regret it because I continue to learn and continue to grow. But I answered ads. I remember running into this one guy. His name was Daniel. And, he hired me to sing a song of his. And it was when Roger Troutman and the whole field, that sound was popular, and I made several trips to his home over maybe a few months, and I would perform his song around town. I would record it with him and record songs with his wife, and it was just, such a fulfilling experience to be in the business from another angle. And it wasn't about always doing shows, but it was about the creative process, those energy, like minds, likeness attracts likeness, and they liked me and I liked them. In fact, I wound up being like a friend to him. I, really just had a great time in that experience. And then eventually I got my own band. What did you go and do that for? I got my own band, and we were called the Free Band. We had several name changes. Moving Heavy, the Free Band was the most known and longest name we stuck with. 6D. There may have been some other names I can't remember, but those are the three names that were most notable, and we performed a lot in the New York City tri-state area, New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut. But we stayed busy, we stayed active. We would rehearse every weekend, Saturday and Sunday, from 2 to 8. And basically I was locked down, and I didn't mind. I loved it because I was the lead singer, so that meant now I have an opportunity of being out front, expressing myself through music. And in addition to that, I also had the opportunity of writing and creating my own material. And I was always pretty good at lyrics, so I was a good lyricist, and I was able to write songs. I was able to, produce songs with the group, And man, and we had some really fine musicians, Daryl Morrison, Louis Fortes, Ron Davis, Dorian Burkett, Ernie Martin, so many guys. I'm trying to think of some of the percussionists. James, we call him Congo James. There was another guy, Latin brother, I can't think of his name right now. But we had different female vocalists. There was Diane, there was Ike, there was Sonny. And we had so many different musician changes, but the core band was usually Louis, Daryl, Ron, myself, and Dorian when he could make it. And it was just a great opportunity of exploring and stretching to the highest level as a musician and as a songwriter and as a young producer. I didn't even realize I was producing, but that's what we were doing. And, it was just an opportunity to stretch out, be better, and then I started working with other bands from time to time because it was something I wanted to do, and I learned how other groups worked. And also I was working on my stage presence because I'm really a reserved person, laid back, even though people may not believe it, but I am. And, but drugs impacted me a lot. I mean, a lot. Because that became one of the premier or main things we did. We would get high before rehearsal, then we would rehearse, sometimes getting high during rehearsals, and then definitely you might get high after rehearsal, which extends the rehearsal an hour or so longer, and then you go home and Sunday you back to do the same thing. And it became, getting high became, I think, maybe like 25, maybe 30% of the activity. Now, even though 70% is an overwhelming lot, for me and for us, to me, I think it stunted our growth. I know for me as a vocalist, it stunted my growth because I didn't know and didn't think about my respiratory system. I didn't think about my vocal cords. I didn't think about the vocal agility. Memory did not really impact me because I was able to write songs, write lyrics, think of a melody and harmonies, put them to music, and I would remember them. Even till today, I thank God that I've got the mindset to create in a manner in which I can create sensibly and make good use of that aspect of my life. And it's been something that I've had for a very long time. So, that was another phase of my evolution, my growth, if you will. And it still was good, even though the bad part is that, maybe I stunted my growth. I definitely did. I shouldn't say maybe. I stunted my growth. But the good part was that I learned from it. Now, I'm no young cat now, but how does that factor in to why and how I'm doing what I'm doing now? I was always in it. I was just always in it. The creative aspects, and like I said, I grew up watching TV. TV was a big part of my early development. I didn't realize that movies, music, the influence, the imprint on my heart and mind, it would be so impactful, but yet it was. So I got to a point that I realized that drugs had a hold on me. And even though, again, I didn't lose my brain, my mind, my ability to create, I wasn't being proactive. It was something that was just dormant inside of me. And at the age of about 37, so now I'm definitely, past that young point in life and you expecting to be established or becoming established, I was not. And again, 37, 38 years of age, I realized that I had a drug problem, very heavy drug problem. And I finally got clean, I paid a price. I lost a lot of my children's early developmental years. They were still a part of my life, but not as much as they should have been. You know, I have 3 children and 3 grandchildren now, but my children, I missed out on certain important aspects because of my addiction. And if I could change that, I would. I would. Had 3 children. They have 2 different moms. And when I think about it, it's like, wow, how much further could I have gotten if the drug part had been taken out? And I think, like they say, you know, when people drink, they call it liquid courage. I think it's the same thing with any drug. You're doing drugs because you think that it's the cat's meow. You think it's the thing that's going to take you from zero to hero, in addition to being cool. You know, the cool factor. The cool factor is always something that seems to make a difference, but what can I say? You know, I can't reverse time. I can't rewind the clock, but that's what happened to me. And in the process, I got clean. Eventually, I got married. It didn't last. Well, it lasted long, but I guess it wasn't meant to be. I remember my mom saying, "Don't do it." And just like when you're getting clean, they tell you don't make any major decisions for your first, I think it's your first year, they say. And of course, I felt like I've arrived. I'm a new person. I got a clean slate on life, so I got married anyway. And it lasted for about 10 years. I feel bad for my stepkids, but I learned a lot from it. I learned a lot about myself. And I'm still learning. I mean, we all should still be learning, honestly. But, yeah, you know, sometimes you just don't know what you don't know. And you have to be real with yourself. And you have to be patient with yourself as well. And it's not easy because sometimes we just don't know what direction we're supposed to go in. So my faith, my belief, that continues to develop. And that's just being honest and being straightforward. But I think my last drink and drug was back in 97, maybe 1997, possibly 1998. So I've been clean for over 25 years. And yeah, I still think about it, but it's not something that I'm doing or something that I'm willing to do, because I would have lost all that I've gained, the intangibles, the psychological, the spiritual development that I've grown. And, you know, again, so I'm trying to get to what does all this have to do with why at this point in my life I am so heavily involved in music. And again, you know, having a addictive personality, or like I said previously, OCD, that obsessive compulsive disorder, I have learned a lot about myself, and what I'm learning is that I don't think I'll ever give up music. I remember laughing at myself saying that I could see myself at 65 years old saying, "It's my prerogative. I can do what I want to do." And here it is. I'm basically there, and I'm singing them songs, you know. Everybody talking, you know, Roni, all that, Jodeci, that whole thing was a thing as far as I'm concerned. You know, in fact, I'll just throw this out there. Even though I grew up with the Motown sound and all that kind of stuff, I think my favorite era is 70s and 90s. The 1970s and the 1990s to me had the music that I really gravitated to. You know, it was like a big deal to me. But yeah, you know, I got married, lasted for about 10 years. You know, I left my music on the shelf. When I got married, I left music alone. And I felt so empty. I mean, I felt like something had been literally carved out of me. And I couldn't put my finger on what is it, what's wrong. There's an emptiness inside of me. And I think that just goes to say that we all got a thing. Whether it's whatever the gift, talent, skill, or ability is, and music has always been my thing. But during that time, I did find and learn that I had a story to tell, and that was about how I overcame my substance abuse and how I had to deal with or come clean with, the experiences that I had, going through multi-level marketing, being able to, again, talk about the substance abuse, talking about overcoming cancer, not once but twice, those are real experiences, but they're really important. And since I came through it, it wasn't about, next. No, it's about taking that experience and maybe empowering, encouraging, or inspiring someone else to do something similar as I did, or to be able to believe in themselves in the way that I did, so that they can be better and moving forward in their own lives. And I think that was really very important. But I love speaking. I really do. And it's not just speaking for the sake of speaking. Speaking with a sense of purpose. Speaking because I have something to say, something worthwhile that can help and benefits other people. And I get excited about it. I've spoken around the country. I've spoken in reality shows. I've got programs literally around the world based on my ability to be a better communicator. And I'm excited about it still. Right now, I'm dividing my time between music and speaking, and that's okay, because I got to remember, when I'm on the platform to do a song, it's not about giving a speech. It's about maybe saying a few words and getting back to the music. It's about creating music where the message is really saying something. So I do that. I let the two marry and are interwoven with one another. But I love the ability to communicate and to empower other people. And it just is what it is. So, I make no apologies. I can talk about it forever and a day. So I'm grateful. Absolutely grateful. But as I said, when I was diagnosed with cancer, I had two challenges, or two fights with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know how to feel. I didn't know how to take it. But I knew that my faith had begun to become stronger and bigger and bolder. So there was no fear at the time. I just took it on the chin, right? I had to roll with it, because there's nowhere you can go. You can't run from these detrimental illnesses and ailments and things. And, at that time, I was married. Even though Mom had told me I shouldn't have gotten married, maybe I should not have, but maybe it was for a purpose. Maybe it all factored into how things were supposed to roll out. But, I failed. We failed. It failed. And, I was feeling all of my life experiences during that time. The things that I didn't do. The things that didn't pan out. The fact that I had opportunities of maybe getting my first opportunity on a major platform when I was using drugs. But I didn't. I was around the Black Ivory later in life. After my friend Carlton introduced me to a couple of the guys, or told me about them, I met them in different ways at different times and developed my own relationship with them. And then I started doing things with Fred McFarlane from D-Train, God bless the dead. He gave me an opportunity of responding to Jocelyn Brown's song, Somebody Else's God. That was a big song back in the day. And he asked me if I did a male version, what would it be like? And he played a track, and I'm good with lyrics. I couldn't think of nothing. So to me, that was a failed opportunity, because I wasn't able to respond. And that's where the phrase, if you stay ready, you don't have to get ready. That's where that phrase comes from. Now, I thought that I was ready, but this is being ready on another level. And I wasn't, but I was feeling all of that, all the things that I'd gone through. Again, the substance abuse, the cancer, the failed opportunities. And it wasn't just that. There were several opportunities that I dropped the ball on. Ray Goodman and Brown, I lived in the same building with one of their managers or personnel, and he asked me for a tape. I gave him a tape. Back then, you got a tape, and you're racing to create some space to put music on, and then you're in a space. That's a big room. We were recording in an apartment, so I got a low quality tape. Racing the tape just so I can put a rehearsal on there. It wasn't EQ'd, and the guy didn't want to hurt my feelings because we had a pretty decent relationship. All he said was, "This is not exactly what we're looking for." So it didn't nothing happened. So there were a lot of opportunities, and I'm feeling all of this as I fast forward. 1998, 2000, whatever the case may be, 2002. All these things are going through my mind dealing with cancer. I'm thinking, wow. So I felt like I wasted time or I lost time, and it was my own fault. I have no one to blame but myself. And then after a while, while I was married, before I got the divorce, I started going to a place in D.C. called Westminster's in South Westminster Church, Presbyterian Church in Southwest. I think it's 4th Street. They had a jazz night every Friday. They play live music, and it was awesome. Just going back there. In fact, memory serves right, which I think it does. I remember sharing with one of my colleagues in the multi-level marketing company that I was at. Her name was Sharmella, and she told me about this place. I went down there, and it was like, whoa, live musicians, instruments, big audience, stage. I was like, oh, that gaping hole that I said I felt, when I said I felt like my soul had been carved out and it was empty, going there gave me a rebirth. So it was two things. One, there was a rebirth because I found this place or was introduced to this place. And number two, I knew that the multi-level marketing, not that there's anything wrong with it, because as it has been said, there have been more millionaires created for multi-level marketing than almost any industry. It doesn't get a good shake or good fair view because of how many people go about conducting business. And I was good at it, but I need to be passionate about something. It was a great learning opportunity. So again, without getting lost right in the minutia, I realized that I'm searching for what's next, which I didn't want it to be the multi-level marketing. And that's where the speaking came in. I spoke about speaking and how important that was to me. At this stage is the stage where I was just introduced to it. And I had met Willie Jolly. Now he's Dr. Willie Jolly. I was sort of reintroduced to Les Brown. Most people already know about Les Brown, but I got to meet Willie personally, and so that was on my radar, and I began that process, speaking and performing talks, workshops, developing these things. So when the music was added to my mental arsenal, man, I was on fire. I was excited. But I didn't go into music, but so hard, so fast, because I was already in the path, or on the path, as a speaker. I was doing talks around town. I started getting paid for doing talks, which is what a lot of people know me for. And it kind of like brings us to the conversation that we're having now. Why would I be doing music when I've been doing other things like keynote speaking and workshops and writing books? I've written 7 books. And people like my writing. They like the journey that I'm able to share with them on how they can be the better versions of themselves. And I'm grateful that I can do that and share that, because I think it's important. And actually, I think it's, in many cases, more important than music, because you're taking people from one place that they are, where they need to be transported to another place to have a more fulfilled, efficient, maybe sufficient life and lifestyle. So, all of that just really it's like I'm in the best space or the best place in the world, because I've got my hands on one side of the microphone or the other side of the microphone. And many times they're interchangeable, they're interwoven. Think about it. You got an audience or a stage. You've got a microphone. There's either a 2-tier audience or 3-tier audience. And sometimes maybe just a single column where you're talking to people. They're so much akin to one another. They're helping you. They support what you do in the public view in how you communicate. It's just that the communication method, one has a melody and one has more of a message. And I'm just grateful that I was able to recognize that and do that. Be a part of both worlds. Now, even though for the past 20-some odd years I've been speaking, I can't tell you how many government agencies I've spoken to, spoken for, keynoted, trained. I am grateful for all of those experiences, and I continue to do it. I've had a couple of engagements this year, in fact, and I have a couple coming up. I'm going to speak life into my future endeavors. And I've been in reality shows that are based loosely around the speaking industry, public speaking. It was called The Keynote with Della Toro McNeil. When the pandemic hit, things shifted. And I won't solely blame the pandemic. I'll just say that my mental state changed. Like a lot of people, some of us had been disrupted, or some people had meltdowns. I didn't have a meltdown, but I realized that my mental state was not as healthy as it could or should have been, or should or could have remained. And I moved back from social media. I stopped a lot of engagement. And towards the end of that, I think I saw Tito Jackson's son on Instagram. And he had his cell phone near his, like you can see my console here. He had his cell phone on the desk, and he was playing some melody of some sort. I don't remember what he was playing, but he was playing some song and asking his followers about, the song. And I don't remember what they said and anything, but I was surprised because I knew about his brothers and their group, the 3 T's. But it got me thinking, because I think at that time I had released one album. I released an album called Around the Mic with Sir Charles and Friends. And I might have released my second album called Everybody Knows. So here it is, I'm watching, I think it's the heavyset brother from the 3 T's, Tito Jackson's sons, on Instagram. And I looked over and I saw my keyboard just leaning up against the wall. And I was just kind of curious, so I plugged it up just to see if it would still play on my programs. And of course it did. But then I got inspired. I wanted to create again. I wanted to play music. And I started reinvesting in my musical apparatus, or my equipment and stuff like that. And one thing led to another. And before you know it, I started writing songs again. I've written about, I say 60, but it's probably more like closer to 100 songs that I've written. Now, all of them haven't gone out. Up to date, I've produced 5 albums. Around the Mic with Sir Charles and Friends, Everybody Knows, Charismatic was the most recent, and A Just Life. So I've produced these 5 albums. One was a cover album of just jazz standards. So I've produced these 5 albums. Plus, I've got a handful of singles, so I know there's another album coming. What can I say? I told y'all, I got OCD. I'm addicted to this thing. I love music. Does it make sense for me to do it? Very much so, I think. And why I say that more so is not just because of being addicted to it, but I think when you look at the big picture, this is the big picture. Hear me well, folks. If you're in my generation, I tell people all the time, I'm a millennial wrapped up in a boomer's body. There's so many people that have given up on life. So many people that don't try. So many people have reasons why they can't, why they shouldn't. Again, I've written well over 60 songs that have been publicly produced out to the general public. I have produced music videos for a majority of my songs. I am performing on the Eastern Seaboard mostly as far as music. Shows, parties, restaurants, bars, private events. Now, speaking, I've spoken all around the country, but music, I have performed with different bands. I put my own band together to do shows. We're called Soul City Collective. And my point is, there's no reason in God's green earth, on God's green earth, why you can't find something. I'm not saying that you should be a musician, but I'm saying if I can put music together, beginning to end, write the lyrics, produce it, learn how to edit it. Even when I can't edit and master, learn where to take it, create music videos. Why can't you do something in tech? Why can't you do something in carpentry? Why can't you do something as an electrician? Why can't you do something with audio visual? Why can't you do something with air conditioning, HVAC, right? Why can't you do something for your community? Why can't you do something? That's a no-no, putting water on an instrument. Why can't you do something for your place of worship? Why can't you do something? Yeah, maybe you have to, so good, do it. But if you don't have to and you want to, you've always wanted to, why can't you do that? That's what I do. That's why I do what I do. There's life left in me, and I want to live it to the fullest. I want to use the gifts, talents, and abilities that have been placed in me ever since the beginning of time, before the beginning of time, and do something worthwhile with those talents, because it means that much to me. How much does it mean to you? You should use your skills, use your talents, encourage and inspire others, and watch what happens to the inside of you. And know this, there's always someone watching you. And I say this in all my workshops and keynotes. Maybe your next door neighbor, maybe someone in the pew in your place of worship, maybe someone in your local community, maybe someone on the highways and byways. There's always someone watching you and watching what you do. Be an inspiration. Be a beacon of light. Don't let your age get in the way of your ability to live a fulfilled life. Now, there's more I can say, more I probably will say, but at this point, I'm just grateful and excited to do and share what I've shared with you. I hope you guys like what I've shared. I know it's, for some, it may be a bit much, but it just is what it is. I'm a true speaker, and I tell it like a TIE is, like we used to say back in the day. I believe in being open, honest, clear, and direct. Those are 4 of my go-tos and how I live my life. And I hope you have go-tos because, as Lou Rawls said, we only have one life to live. So live it in peace, live it in truth. Why don't you live it in love? And you will hear more about music. You'll hear more about speaking. But this is really all about why am I allowing myself to shift from music to music, from the speaking industry. I haven't left the speaking industry. I'm just doing more things with my time and my talents. Do more with your talents. As I say recently, be part of the energy. And most importantly, radiate the brain and change the game. I'm going to see you guys on the next one. Now I can tell you, my first album was called Around the Mic with Sir Charles and Friends. Let me see if I can find any of the files. You know, it's so funny when I think about what I've done musically. I was the kind of guy that didn't know where I fit as far as, you know, what I would like to do, because I liked everything from the Jackson 5, Elvis Presley, the Rat Pack, the Beatles, Earth, Wind and Fire, Kool and the Gang, James Brown. I mean, I was just so inspired by rhythms. And, you know, fast forward, my first album, I don't know if you can see this, but it was in Tower Records, believe it or not. It was called Carrie's Standards. And it had 3 songs on it. And then I eventually created another version of Carrie's Standards with 4 songs. I added a song by George Michael. Again, another influence, right? Kissing a Fool. So that was the jazz, contemporary jazz flow of my liking, I guess you could say. You know, I remember a friend of mine told me about a studio in Silver Spring, and I went up there. It was a competition, and I won. Maybe I won 2nd place, I don't know, but you know, I fared very well. The songs on the album were It Had to Be You, All of Me, and Misty. And then again, like I said, I added Kissing a Fool by George Michael maybe 6 months later. But, you know, I did it because it was just what moved me, what motivated me. And, you know, again, I was going down to the Westminster Church on Friday for jazz, and I wanted to be able to sell my CD. And I wanted to let people know that I am a active artist doing my thing as well. You know, I never was a featured artist there, but I would go and sing in the intermission, and the crowd liked me. And I remember one time this guy, Dick Smith, I think he was a football player with the Redskins. He said, "Yo, man, you can sing, just do jazz though. Don't do no R&B, don't do none of that." And one day I went up there and I did You Make Me Feel Brand New. It's a Norman Connors. My love, I never find the words, my love. And the audience loved it. And afterwards, he's like, "Yo, man, you can't do that. You can't do that. It's got to be straight jazz." And I was like, "Oh, man." But, you know, I had to obey the rules of the house. And that night I didn't. They liked me. Several of them bought CDs. And I would keep going back, but eventually I stopped because I know that even though jazz is a part of my roots, my evolution, it's not only jazz, you know. And I wanted to do more R&B stuff, so I eventually did. And think in 2009, I did another CD called Around the Mic with Sir Charles and Friends. I got a good friend from the job. He was known as Mastermind, and I did a 17, well, it's really 15 tracks, if you don't count the intro and the outro. I got a couple of, That's What I Do, was one of the featured tracks. My Struggles was another one. Let's see. Get in Touch. That's what I do. The things that make you smile. That's what I do when I'm just having a good old time. So I put all this together, then I got the great idea. Hey, the ideas came from my very first book, titled Poetic Expressions. So I took those poems, set them to hip-hop, classical, R&B, soul, and jazz music, and I came up with this album. No matter, no doubt. And then I wanted to take it a little bit further. I created music videos based on the songs from the CD I created. See, I told you TV influenced me heavily. I don't know why this is pollen, but TV influenced me very heavily. So I looked at the creative aspects of innovating and creating and music and performance, and I kind of like, it became a melting pot, and that's what this album was produced from, those ideas. Here's another one, My Struggles, right? I don't have the original tracks because I did it in the studio with this guy named Rich. On Instagram, it's Get Richard. At the time, we called him Filthy Rich because he's like a brainchild in the studio. He's a great engineer. I've been working with him for years.
My brother's eye, while mine are open wide, that gives me reasons for pause as I contemplate inside. Balancing life, sometimes I feel spurned. Like playing a game, I might lose my turn.
No drama for Obama, I'm turning the tide. I paint the White House black and then I step inside. I see the dreams of.
And I was doing features. When features were, it probably was being done, but features, collaborations, but you know, I can't help it. This is just a part of who I am. And what influenced me to write these songs were my feelings, the emptiness that I had been feeling, the ability to create and write, being a pretty decent lyricist, and I just wanted to continue growing, developing, and sharing my gift. And what can I say? I've always been in love with the ability to create and innovate. So I continue to do that because it just means that much to me. So there were a lot of songs that I did. And then eventually I pushed that. I did a show. I did a show with two other poets. One was called Poetry Man. And another gentleman was named David the Uncrowned King. Man. So after that, what did I do? Another album, right? Everybody Knows. And at this point, I had recently been diagnosed with cancer. And not only was I diagnosed with cancer, I had did a documentary because this was one of the first, if you can call it a milestone, or detrimental incidents in my life. And for some reason, something said to me, take your camera, go step by step, basically exploring everything that you're going through. I decided to document, and I created an actual documentary. That means I went to the hospital, I filmed it, I spoke to the doctor, I filmed it, my going and coming, I filmed everything I could, and I put together a documentary. It turned out to be a two-sided CD. One side was the story of my battle with cancer, and the other side was Everybody Knows. Here's a little bit of Everybody Knows. Let's see, can I find it? Now, yeah, just know you should know. I know. Everybody knows you and I should be one, and that's just the way. Everybody knows you and I should be one, and that's just the way. The times we share, the clothes we wear, the places we go, so everybody knows. And everybody knows was like the type of song, of course, a lot of times we start writing about romantic relationships, and I realized there's more to your life than writing about a girl or writing about a relationship. And I started writing about, I transitioned my message to be about the Most High, about the fact that everybody knows you and I should be one. You should be one with the Most High, and that's just the way it should be. And that's what I did. Created a music video again, right? I went down to a restaurant on 7th Street in Washington, D.C., across from what was called the MCI Center. Had a couple of actors come down to be in the video. And, I mean, again, this has been my journey my entire life. And I had to be at least mid to late 40s at that time. You know, so, I don't know. What can I say? Another song on the album was a collaboration with a good friend of mine. In fact, I'll be going to New York to do a show with him. Carl T. Smith, he's known as the Smooth One. We're doing a show in New York, and I asked him, did he have any tracks? He said, sure. He sent me like 10, 11 tracks. I took 2 tracks and I created a song called The Right Time. And the other track was called In the Morning. This is In the Morning.
Okay, baby, let's go.
The night time is the right time. In the morning, before yawning, oh, I can see your face right here.
Okay, that is clearly not a spiritual message. That is a relationship-oriented message. And I just had a great time writing that, producing it, putting it together, and getting it out. And yes, once again, well, when it first came out, I did not have a music video. I released it twice. Several years later, I put it on, let's see, which album was it? I put it on my next album, A Just Life. And in A Just Life, my good friend Paul Lawrence, again, super producer from the 80s, and he did a mix. He said he didn't have to do much to it, but he still put his hands on it, and I appreciated that. You know, we reconnected. You know, he's got a string of #1 hits. That's the guy I was saying that I was like a local roadie because he parted from the gang and did something with his musical talents. I say he was a good person to follow, watch, and learn from. So when he put his hands on this song for my re-release, I was so honored. But again, there was several songs, about 7 songs on Everybody Knows. And then came A Just Life. Now, this album was packaged very well and produced, but again, In the Morning was one of the premier songs, as well as, let's see, what else seemed to get a lot of attention? I Miss You. And I named it A Just Life because I thought of my brother, who had been missing mainly my entire life. I was about 14, 15 years old. He disappeared and haven't seen my brother since. I don't know if he's alive or not, but I love my brother even today to no end. The song is called A Just Life, in memory of my brother. And I had a feature from Success. Success is a DMV native, currently living in Atlanta in the ATL as a radio producer, promoter, a personality, and as an artist.
I didn't know which way to go. I always know I can count on you to pull me through. One thing for sure, your love is true, my brother, none other, my brother, same mother, my brother, none other, my brother, same mother.
My time, life, no different than mine. On this crooked line, my path is so hard to find. I put it all on the line.
He was one of the only artists that I knew, rap artists, that did not curse in his approach to hip hop. Now I don't know if he still has the same approach, but for a number of years I've noticed that about Success. I even shot a music video for him for a song he had called 2K, which was, to me, is really hot. Just unfortunately he didn't pitch it to the video company that makes or made football and 2K basketball. They're really big on basketball. But yeah, and then I had the opportunity of doing another song, and I realized that almost every album I've done, I have an inspirational song on every album. And this particular album I was able to do with my mentor, Willie Jolly, Dr. Willie Jolly. He did a song with me called Who Will Make It Better? And like others, you can imagine, yes, a music video accompanied the song. So let's hear a little bit of that. This song was a collaboration with Willie Wunbush, one of the founders of the Suitland Fest organization.
Who is like no other? And who can make it better? We need to know. And who can help us out? When we're down and out, we need to know. Oh, who is our real friend? If each one teach one.
So, again, why do I do it? Why not? I'm mad excited about the opportunity that I can create, that I can deliver. And you know, okay, maybe my sound isn't for you, and I get that. I even respect that. I hope I'm wrong, but that's the truth. Everyone doesn't like everything. But if you've got something to offer, why are you not offering it? Why is it that you're not, sharing that thing with the world? I mean, yeah, you may make $1 million, $2 million, $20 million, and maybe you won't. But it's about the quality of life and maybe who it is that you can touch. Who is it you can make a difference with in utilizing or exhibiting your craft? So let me not just go into a speech, right? My most recent album play off my last name, Carey. It's called Charismatic. I don't know if you can see that there about the glare. Charismatic. And I think there's several songs in here that are really hitting. Bae, You're Sexy, Still Thinking, Without You, The Door. Oh my goodness. So there's just a lot to offer. Let me see if I can find a little something. I'm sure I can. Let me see if I can find it. Charismatic. I say, where are you? Where are you?
Live from the music department.
Let's go.
Hey, baby, I get excited when I look at you. Hey, baby, I can't deny it. My nature says it's true.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
You're sexy, so good to me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You're sexy, all I need is one. You're sexy. Love your drip and your hair. Fragrant.
All of these songs pretty much inspired by personal relationships, personal experiences. What can I say?
All I do is think about you.
For me, as a lyricist,
Every single day. My. The way that I feel.
as a lyricist, it's easy for me if I've got something to write about that I have experienced. So it's right up my aisle. It's just a natural progression for me. And Still Thinking, You're Sexy, Bae, Without You. I mean, I could play every song, and this is Without You, featuring Enoch, Seventh Prophet. So, you know, I just do what I do, and again, I make no apologies for it. I hope some of you have come across my music, my videos, and again, I hope some of you really like what I'm doing. And I'm hoping that I'm able to inspire you to, do the same. It may not be music, whatever area of interest or whatever your talent may be, I would hope that you would be able to do the same because you can and because you want to. And if it's a have to, what better option to have that if you must do something, you can do something in an area that you're naturally talented in, that you have a genuine, authentic interest in. It doesn't get much better than that, folks. It really doesn't. But Charismatic was a lot of fun. I did a listening and release party not too long ago, and then I followed up and did a show with a live band, and the journey has just been phenomenal. The journey has been and is a phenomenal journey. What makes it that is the fact that I'm able to work with other creatives. I'm able to create a reasonably good product. People seem to like it, and I can do more of it. Now, what's better than that? So with that being said, any questions, any comments, please let them fly. I'd love to get your feedback as we continue to grow. Remember, be part of the energy as you radiate the brain and change the game. Until next time.